World War II was one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. It spanned from 1939 to 1945, drew in over 100 million people from 30-plus countries, and engulfed the entire world in war. Today, we'll explore the war's key figures, terms, and history.
The war was fought by the Axis powers, which consist of Germany, Italy, and Japan, and was fought against the Allies: Britain, Soviet Union, United States, Canada, and France.
The war kicked off in September 1939, when Germany invaded Poland.
Hitler used a fast, powerful military tactic called blitzkrieg, meaning lightning war, to quickly overtake his opponents.
After Poland fell, there was a lack of fighting between countries, an awkward silence of sorts, but this didn't last very long.
By the middle of 1940, Germany had invaded Belgium, Norway, Denmark, and the Netherlands, and had finally crushed France.
People blame the rapid collapse of these countries on years of something called appeasement, or in other words, the Allied countries giving Hitler what he wanted when he wanted it. This allowed Hitler to gain power and create an even stronger military without any country stopping him.
In an attempt to retreat, more than 300,000 Allied soldiers tried to evacuate France at the evacuation of Dunkirk.
After the Battle of Britain, the Luftwaffe, or German Air Force, bombed British cities, but they faced retaliation from the Royal Air Force and the Royal Canadian Air Force. That kind of retaliation is what the Royal Canadian Air Force was known for. They were relied upon by all the Allies. On top of that, they trained members of the British Air Force and were deployed in different theaters in World War II. All the while, the Battle of the Atlantic ensued. German U-boats, or submarines, attacked Allied shipping routes.
But corvettes, some Canadian-built, helped escort convoys moving supply lines safely.
On the home front, Canadian civilians bought war bonds and paid new income taxes to help support the war effort.
Important factories built planes, tanks, and boats.
But not all was well. In 1941, over 22,000 Japanese Canadian citizens were forced into harsh internment camps, their rights and properties taken away to never be given back. These camps were essentially prisons, and the food, water, and medical care were inadequate. The people were also forced into labor, sometimes working up to 12 hours a day.
In 1941, Germany broke its pact with the Soviet Union, launching Operation Barbarossa.
A massive invasion which would ultimately fail, changing the tide of the war in the East.
About the 27-yard line. Cruiser Kennard made the tackle. We interrupt this broadcast to bring you this important bulletin from the United Press. Flash, Washington. The White House announces Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Stay tuned to WOR for further development.
On December 7, 1941, Japan launched an attack on Pearl Harbor, bringing the United States into the war. Amid the chaos, the Nazis carried out their final solution, a plan to murder all the Jews.
The Holocaust resulted in the tragic loss of millions of innocent lives, marking one of the darkest chapters in human history. It serves as a solemn reminder of the devastating consequences of hatred and intolerance.
On June 6, 1944, the Allies launched Operation Overlord, the D-Day invasion of Normandy, France.
Canadian forces stormed Juno Beach, facing fierce resistance, but overall securing a final victory.
As Allied forces closed in on Germany, Hitler retreated to his bunker. In April 1945, he took his own life.
Germany surrendered shortly after, on May 8, 1945.
But the war wasn't over. To end the U.S. campaign in the Pacific, the U.S. did the unthinkable. They dropped 2 nuclear bombs. And in a similar fashion, the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were wiped off the map. Upwards of 200,000 civilians were killed in these bombings. And to this day, the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki remain the only use of nuclear weapons in an armed conflict. Japan announced its surrender 6 days later. And on August 15, 1945, World War II was finally over. Canada's sacrifice was immense. Over 1 million served and more than 45,000 didn't make it home. Their sacrifice shaped the world we live in today.